Welcome back, toy fans, to episode 133 of Reynolds Reviews. And on today's episode, Viewers' Questions, Part 1. Cue the match. Welcome back, everyone. Now, like I said in the intro, today we are going to take a look at Viewers' Questions, Part 1. Now, this is something I've not done for quite a while. I did do a Viewers' Questions and Answers video maybe about a year ago now, and I just thought it was a good time to do that again. Whilst I've got nothing turning up, any new arrivals coming recently, I just thought Viewers' Questions would be a really nice change of pace. So if you don't hear your question in this week's video, don't worry. I have had to do a part 2. I got such a great response. This will be in 2 parts. So if your question isn't in this week's video, don't worry, it will be in next week's. Okay, so that being said, let's jump straight in and see what you guys have asked. Okay, so the first question comes from YouTube viewer KB, and KB wants to know, I realise space is always at a premium, but are there any other toy lines that you want to get involved in at some point, and if so, which ones? Well, the quick answer to that, KB, is yes, there certainly are. This room was only ever really meant to be a Star Wars room when I started out, but recently it's getting so much more diverse, and I've got to be honest, I'm really enjoying it. I love Star Wars and collecting Star Wars, but sometimes I just feel a little bit strangled and a little bit suffocated by it. So recently I've started picking up some new toy lines. If you follow the channel, you will have noticed that I picked up some TMNT only a few weeks ago. Recently I've picked up some Thundercats as well as things like Motu, which was never meant to be part of this room, influenced by people like Shabby and Toy Expert Lucy. People like Chris Mewa, I'm always influenced by other collectors and their collections. But one toy line that I've been looking at recently is Rambo from Coleco, which may surprise some people, but a really affordable toy line. And again, I did have some of those as a kid, so I am looking at those. But one toy line that I do intend to pick up in the very near future is Brave Star. Now, this was mentioned by Shabby on USR only a few weeks ago, and it really jogged and kick-started some nostalgic memories. And I realised that I did have a handful of those when I was a kid. So, yeah, space is at a premium, but I am enjoying picking up different lines, and I definitely would like to pick up some Rambo, but especially some Brave Star. So keep an eye on the channel. You may see some of those coming soon. Okay, so the next question comes from somebody you may well be familiar with. And this question comes from Dave over at Toy Polloi. And Dave asks, how many of your childhood toys did you keep? Lots? Or were you like me and sold them all? Well, no, Dave. The sad answer really is there is nothing in this room that is from my childhood. Certainly not toys. The only thing in this room that survived from childhood are my original VHS Star Wars tapes. I've got Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi original VHS tapes. They are the only things in this room that survived from my childhood. Every other toy is something that I've reacquired in the last 10 years. So sadly, yeah, nothing survived my childhood. When I got to a certain age, me and my brother played a lot of sport when we were young, so I think we discovered football, maybe a few other things as well. I won't say I lost interest. I never lost interest in my toys, but I do recall them sort of being squirreled away, I think, onto car boot sales once my parents thought I was too old for them, and even given away to neighbour kids. Now, I can't have put up much of a fight, which sometimes I feel a little bit sad about. But yet, sadly, nothing in this room is from my childhood, barring my VHS tapes. I mean, luckily, I have acquired most things from when I was a child, what I would have wanted to get back into my collection, but occasionally I do feel a little bit sad that I can't look at any toys in this room and look at them with that nostalgic connection, thinking that they survived. You know, this toy has been with me all the way from childhood up to now. That does make me sad a little bit sometimes, but no, unfortunately, the answer is no toys in this room survived from childhood. Everything has been acquired in the last 10 years. Okay, so the next question comes from our Sai, better known as Manga Fandanga. And Sai wants to know, if there was a mask vehicle you could have full size and drive yourself, which one would it be? Well, that's a great question, Sai. My God, there's so many good options for that one. I mean, obvious ones like Thunderhawk, Switchblade, Rhino, they're all amazing vehicles. Things like Stinger, such fantastic vehicles. If I could have full size, to be honest, the answer might surprise you. If I could have one vehicle full size for myself, it would probably be Slingshot, because I'm convinced somewhere I could sleep in it, even though there is a rocket. If you open it up, there's a rocket in there. I'm sure I could find somewhere to sleep. And I just think the camper van in itself, that amazing design down the side of it, that sort of red, orange, and yellow detailing, just screams 80s for me, and I think it is just such a cool vehicle. And when you look at what vehicles are available in the Mask toy line, this might surprise some people, but if I could have one vehicle full size that I could own, yeah, I think it would be Slingshot. I think it's amazing. Okay, so the next question comes from YouTube viewer Sci-Fi, and Sci-Fi asks, I personally think the retro figures should be exactly that. They should be older figures in retrospective, not new characters from new movies or TV shows. What are your thoughts on this? Well, I've got to admit, Sci-Fi, I absolutely agree. Now, don't get me wrong, I do own some retro collections, or the more modern, newer figures, such as the Mandalorian. I do enjoy the Mandalorian figures. I've got to admit, I really do like them. I won't be picking up any of the Kenobi figures, but yes, I agree. If the decision was mine, the retro collection would have been purely focused on the original 96 figures. I think it should have been based on that. I figured that was the whole point to start with. And I've got to admit, even though I do like the Mandalorian ones, I do feel that there is much more pull to the retro collection when we see the original 96 figures released. You know, I think they give everyone the opportunity to own those original figures on a card, even though they're obviously a modern version. When you pick them up retail, they're £10 to £12, which I just think is a great price point as well for what they are. I mean, especially when you look at the new recent 2-pack that's been released with Boba Fett and Bossk, straight away I knew I wanted those. I got excited when seeing them, which is a feeling that I don't generally get when I see the more modern characters released. Certainly didn't get it when I saw the Kenobi figures released. So, whilst I do like the Mandalorian versions of the retro collection, I agree. If the choice was mine, the retro collection would be purely focused and based on the original 96 figures. Okay, the next question is from our Tez over at Roland's Reviews. And Tez asks, when are you going to make a top 10 Mask video? Well, yeah, it is in the pipeline, Tez. To be honest, it probably won't be a top 10 video. It will probably be a top 5. That's not because I've only got top 5 graphics. Because if I'm going to do a top 10 Mask vehicle video, I think 10 is too many. Even though there are plenty of vehicles in Mask as a toy line, I think 10 gives me too many options. Whereas I think if I do a top 5, it will force me into picking vehicles, or should I say, missing vehicles out of the top 5 that I would want to put in a top 10. I think top 10 would be too easy to pick. So I feel if I do a top 5, it will force me into making decisions that I don't want to make as far as vehicles that I want to leave out and vehicles I want to include. So it is coming soon, but I'm going to make it a top 5 rather than a top 10, because I just think 10 vehicles would be easy for me, because, you know, I've got so many favourites. I think I could pick out 10 favourites, you know, whereas if I had to cut it down to 5, that will make me sort of force me into some difficult decisions. So I'm going to do a top 5 Mask video soon for Mask vehicles. But yeah, don't worry, Tez, it is coming, and I will use those graphics. So the next question is from our very own Scuba P, and Scuba wants to know, if you could go back and change anything in your collection, would you? Well, that's a really good question, Pete. If I'm honest, I try not to have any regrets when it comes to collecting. I mean, I dare say all of us in our collecting time has what we'd maybe call made mistakes, where we've maybe opted to buy one thing and not another, and that thing has then gone up in price or become extremely rare or very, very collectible. And we look back and think, oh, I should have either kept hold of that, I should have bought that, or I should have sold that, or whatever it may be. I try not to do that because I think we can drive ourselves crazy having regrets with our collection. I try not to do that because I think whatever decisions I've made since I've been collecting were the right decisions at the time. I felt they were right at the time. You know, if we all had hindsight and was able to look into the future, we would all make very different decisions, I'm sure. But no, you know, I like to think that I made the right decisions for my collection at the right time. I'm not concerned about value, so if I passed up on something that is now very hard to get or very valuable, that doesn't bother me generally, because I don't collect for investment, I don't collect for value, I don't collect for any kind of financial gain. I collect for the love of the items. So no, I mean, I dare say there was probably decisions I would have made differently, things I would have done differently, but do I have any regrets, and would I change anything? No, I don't think I would. The next question is from YouTube viewer Des T, and Des wants to know, what are your plans for your collection when you eventually run out of space in your room? Well, Des, that is a great question and quite a scary one, if I'm totally honest. I have thought about it myself. I am very, very close to being at that stage. And I guess what I'll have to do is what a lot of other collectors do, is look around the room and make difficult decisions on things that I'm prepared to move on to move new things in. I'm like a lot of collectors. Whenever I buy anything, I don't ever buy anything that I intend to move on in the future. Everything I buy is something that I feel that I love at the time and I want in my collection. But as we all know, you get influenced by other collectors and other channels. And over the years, like a lot of things, your taste changes, your collecting style changes. And I dare say there are probably things in this room now that I can look around and maybe something that I bought 4, 5, 6 years ago, and the love that I had for it then, I maybe don't have the same love for it now. So the sad truth is, when that time comes, I will probably have to move things on to bring new things in. I am prepared to do that, but I also think there's a lifespan on that as well. I think if I do that, I think there will come a time where everything in the room, I love and won't want to move anything on. So are there things in this room right now that I would be prepared to move on? Yes. But I think that's only limited. I think I will be able to do that only for so long before the room is then full of things that I'm not prepared to move on. Then I will be in trouble. But at this point, the idea or the plan is to move things on to make room for new stuff. And I think at this point, that's all I can do. Okay, and the final question comes from a very good friend of the channel, and that is YouTube viewer VTR Dave. And Dave wants to know, now that you're a YouTube superstar, don't know about that, Dave, what advice would you give to other new up-and-coming toy channels? Well, that's a really good question, and if I'm totally honest, quite a difficult one. First of all, I would probably say if you're going to start a YouTube channel, make sure you've got the time to dedicate to it. Even at a very, very small level, I mean, my channel is extremely small, but time does become a factor. And the strange part of that is not necessarily filming. I've always got time to film. I can generally film my videos quite quickly and edit them quite quickly. The time comes with the communication, even at a very, very small level like my channel is, you do tend to get quite a lot of comments. You do tend to get quite a lot of communication with people. And the thing is, I always endeavour to get back to every comment with a meaningful reply as well, not just a thank you or cheers for watching, because I want viewers to feel part of the channel. I try to make every viewer feel part of it. So I try to respond to every single comment with a meaningful response. I also try to respond to everyone if they contact me privately, because I think it's very, very important to make the viewer feel like part of the channel. So make sure you've got the time to do that, because it does take quite a lot of time. In fact, the communication probably takes more time than the filming. So make sure you've got time. Try to make your video quality as good as possible. It's something that I'm always worried about. But good quality content will always bring viewers back. I do everything on my phone, which can be quite tricky at times for quality, but good quality content will always win out. Try to make sure you maintain home and YouTube life balance. That is a massive one for me. It's something that I've suffered with in the past, because YouTube can take over, believe it or not. It is something that you can get quite involved in, even if your channel is extremely small like my own. You've got to make sure you maintain that home and YouTube life balance. It may sound like a silly one, but it can affect your home life. It has affected mine at stages in the last 2 years. So you've got to make sure that you prioritize your home life, because at the end of the day, YouTube is just a hobby. So make sure you've got that balance right, and then you should be fine. But also get involved in a community. I've been very lucky to connect with people and be part of a circle of friends and a community that has embraced me as a YouTuber. I've got so many friends now that I speak to daily. We bounce off ideas, I get advice, I get support, and it is absolutely amazing now. Some of the people that I've met are now friends for life. So get involved in a community, and above all else, just enjoy your time on YouTube, because you will encounter some negative aspects. You will encounter some negative people and some negative comments. You've got to be quite thick-skinned, so make sure you're ready for that. But make sure you enjoy it and just have fun. So there we go, everybody. That is part 1 done. I hope you got the answers that you wanted. Like I said to everybody, don't worry. If your question wasn't on this week, it will be on next week. And hopefully you'll enjoy that episode as well. So there we go, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by and giving me a shot. I hope you'll consider leaving a like and subscribing. And if you're one of my existing viewers and existing subscribers, I know I say it all the time, but thank you for supporting me, everyone. I really do appreciate it. Leave any comments or questions in the comment section below. I always try to read everyone's comments and get back to everybody. And as always, keep collecting. I'll see you next time.